Hello everybody, my name is Leo aka Knockdef and welcome to another video, and today I'm gonna show you guys one of my favorite shaders in Fight and Fall, one of my favorite shader magics out there. It's very simple, it's very effective, and in my opinion, it's a vital tool for every technical artist worth its salt. Like, custom vertex data, solar coasters, warp shaders, which is what I'm gonna show today, and blend add shaders. This is like the creme de la creme, right, of technical art and VFX. So yeah, I want to showcase for you guys here. Please do not forget that those tutorials, part of a lot of this comes from Fight and Fall, which is this game right here that I am making alongside William. So if you want to check out Fight and Fall, you can check out fightandfall.com if you want to find out more about the game, or also you can check the links down below. There will be a Steam link right away, there will be a card, there will be links galore for you to see Fight and Fall. So first, let's start with a little bit of an explanation of what is a distortion shader, right? So let me get this here, and let's go to the scene view here. And let's pay attention to those VFX. So I separated those VFX right here because they use this technique that I'm speaking about. So yeah, let's take a look at them. Let's take a gander. So the first one is Black Hole. And I want you guys to observe that if I restart Black Hole here, so if we go in here, let me just boop. All right, select the particle systems and I restart. You guys are going to notice there's like a lot of VFX going on. This is a very complex VFX, but I want to call special attention to first those ribbons that go out and they distort right when the effect starts. And also we have an extra layer of displacement here in the ground. So if I move this over, let me see here. Is it below the ground? It might be. No, I think I got the wrong one. I apologize. It's this one maybe. Let's see. Boop. Nope, it is not. Okay, this displacement right here is like right at the start. It's just, I need to raise it up a little bit so you guys can see that it's a little bit of a boop right when the black hole starts. And also we have like the base displacement level. So as you guys can see here, the ground is getting sucked in, right? You guys can see here, I don't know if the bitrate from YouTube will allow it to be seen very clearly, but as you guys can see here, the ground is being suckered. We use the same VFX, the same shader. Let me just stop here, the particle system, so we have a clean slate. We also do the same for this VFX right here. And as you guys can see on this one, we have those ripples, this kind of vortex sort of shape here. If I draw, you guys are going to notice that we have this kind of vortex going on of displacement. This is also using the same technique. In here, we have the stomp, and this is another great example. This shader is so useful for like shockwaves and like blasts of power that you want to make it very clear to the player that, this area was affected by a power. And finally, so right now we've covered some usages. So like sucking effects, it's very good. Things like void, space, black holes, etc. Elemental effects, things like fire displacement, water displacement. It's a great shader for that. In this case right here, shockwaves. It's also great for shockwaves, as you guys can see. And my last use case that I use all the time, which is movement effects. So if you want to mask out the movement of a character, using displace is a great tool to do so. If we observe in this VFX right here, let me get the blink. So you guys can see here that with a little bit of particles, and it's very subtle displacement, it's very quick, but you guys can see that this kind of masks, this would be a spell that kind of like blinks the player, right? It's kind of like a flash from League of Legends. So we can see here that this VFX kind of warps the character, and this motion is very useful to convey movement. So these are the use cases that I use. So let's talk a little bit about the theory, and then we'll jump right in and actually make the damn thing. So here we have a slate in Photoshop that I prepared. So we're going to be just explaining the basics here. So let me take a screenshot of my game. Let's take a screenshot right here. So things in video games, they kind of have a queue, right, of rendering. So things, they render on a queue. For whatever reason, I cannot move this. Please let me move you. Okay, I cannot move this. Let me try now. It seems as though this has been locked. Whatever, let's just put it here then. Oh, okay, now I can move it. Okay, that's odd. I've never seen that before. All right. So the way video games render things is that, let's say we want to create a displacement effect similar to this one. What we would do in a tool like Photoshop is that we might take the smudge tool and we might, like, you know, pinch it around with the smudge tool. So let's make the smudge tool like really hard. So we might do something like this, right? To like kind of smooch it over. Video games don't really work like that. We don't really have the ability to do this like on the actual geometry, on the actual render buffer. So what we need to do here is kinda, but not really, add a new render pass. This is not really a new render pass, but what we'll be doing is the following. The way the engine works, it says, no, you cannot take the image directly and smudge it with the smudge tool. So what we can do then is say the following. All right, game, so guess what? I just want to distort this area right here. So what I'm gonna do is that I'll duplicate this area, turn it into a image, but not really, but let's pretend it's an image. And then what I'm gonna do is that then to this part, I will smudge it all up, and then I will blend it by masking it. So let's use the mask here in Photoshop. Then I'll mask, oops, let's make like bigger. Oh no, too big. Oh God, the explanation hardens. All right, cool. And then we can mask around it to transition our smudge into the render buffer. And ta-da, we have a blurred part of our game. This is how it is set up from a technical level. Now there's a problem with this. You guys who are more keen on it probably noticed that if we're duplicating the scene, what's happening is that we're rendering the whole game, and then we're taking a screenshot of it and applying a filter to that screenshot and blending it back into the game. So essentially you're rendering that part twice. This is why this effect is a little bit expensive. It's a little bit on the expensive side because you're going to be kind of rendering this area right here twice, which is not ideal for performance. Now, this isn't a big deal like in 99.9% of the time. Especially as computers right now are like super beefy, but that's not the brush I was using, it's this one. Yep, this one. Cool. So it's not like a huge deal, but at the same time it kind of is for mobile games, right, and low-end devices. So keep that in mind. This technique is not really advised for super low-end devices. So now that we have this explanation done here, don't forget to like the video, and let's go. Let's actually make the damn thing. All right, let me open up Unity here, and let's create. I created a folder here called tutorial, and we're going to create a new shader. We're using shadergraph for this. This works in all Unity versions, and this works on HDRP and lightweight rendering pipeline as well, I'm pretty sure. So this project is HDRP, so what we're going to do is that we're going to make a, I think we can just make an unlit graph, but let's just make like an unlit graph in here. Oh no, I apologize. We're actually not making a unlit graph. We're actually making a PBR graph. So let's go in here, shader, HDRP. Oh no, we have it right here, PBR graph. And we're going to call this one tutorial, oops. tutorial warp. Many people call this displacement, warp, whatever. It doesn't matter. All right, so now we have, a clean slate to work with. So let's begin. Alrighty, so let's first work on the actual warp behavior. Although there are some settings we need to set here in our graph. So the first one, you guys are going to click here in this cogs that we have, and we're going to make metallic. We're going to make it transparent because we're going to be blending it in. We're going to use alpha mode for our transparency. And for my purposes, I'm going to make it two-sided. You guys don't need to make it two-sided, but I just like having this shader in particular being two-sided because I'm just going to use this one in all of my situations. So I don't want to get caught out in a situation where I need the two-sided feature and I don't have it. All right, cool. So now what we're going to do here is that we're going to make a quick and dirty texture. So let's create a new file, and we're going to make a 1024 by 1024 texture. Doesn't need to be that big. Let me kill the artboard. And all right, cool. So here on this thing, we can use a black and white texture. We can use a normal map. The shader is going to work either way. So what we're going to do here is that I'm just going to use a very simple black and white texture just so we can verify that it's working. So I'm just going to make a black background, and then I'm going to go to Control F to find, and I'm going to go for cloud. And we're going to render a cloud here. And I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Control J. And I'm just going to select a different blend mode between them, just so we have like some more interesting shapes. Let's do linear dodge add. And then we're going to once again do Control F, and we're going to search for minimum. And I'm going to use like, I don't know, something like this. And then we're going to go to the previous cloud here, and we're also going to apply minimum to it. This is just a very quick and dirty kind of, let's make it very, like a very strong minimum. Like 180, yeah. Kind of like a Swiss cheese. And now we have this kind of, texture-y texture going on. All right, so we have our texture. Let's export it. All right. So now I'm going to export it. I'm going to take the folder of my Unity project, and I'm going to export straight into it. And I'm going to call this one tutorial noise. All right, very cool. Now, what we can do here is that we can make a new variable type texture2D, and we're going to call it distortion texture. And here on the texture selector thingy, I want to take and search for tutorial noise. All right, very cool. Now we have our tutorial noise in here. All right, so now let's do a sample texture 2D. Sorry. And then we have our texture. All right, cool. So now what we're going to do here is that in case you want to use an alpha channel, you will put your channel into the alpha. So if your texture has an alpha channel, it is going to automatically blend by that alpha channel. We can actually even make that in here. So let's make this, let's make an alpha channel in here. And to make an alpha channel, all I'm going to do is that I'm going to do this, create a mask for this texture and kind of just, make it all black. Let's just get a soft brush and make any shape really. Yeah, something like this maybe. So we get distortion towards the middle, but almost nothing on the other sides. So let's quick export this as PNG. Let me re-export it by the same name. So it's just going to be tutorial noise and save it. Oops, just replacing files. All right, cool. So now this tutorial noise should have an alpha channel. So if I drag this alpha channel here and we multiply it, you guys are going to see that we have this circle. All right, cool. Now let's do the magical part. So we're going to make now the actual warp part of this. So hold on one second. I apologize. So we're going to drag this once again, and we're going to take another sample texture 2D using the same texture. But this time around, we want to create some controls here, some knobs for us to turn. The first one is going to be the distortion tiling. So let's make a new vector 2, and we're going to call it distortion tiling. And the default value is going to be 1 to 1. So let's just, put 1, 1 here. Grab it over. And we're going to keep it in there for now. And we want a tile and offset node, tiling and offset. And we're going to put the distortion tiling in here. And we also want a new vector 2, which is going to be the distortion speed. And this one can be defaulted to 0, 0. I apologize. This project is very huge. This is why I'm taking those pauses from time to time, because my computer is doing some hitches as it's processing. The project is just way too big. So this is why sometimes there are those hitches. I apologize. There's nothing much I can do about that. And what we're going to do here with the distortion speed is that we're going to multiply it by time, which means that as time goes on, we're going to offset this texture by X amount, X being this variable right here, the distortion speed. Cool. And we're going to put this into the offset. So now we have this basic setup. This is very simple. And we're going to drag this over and slap it in the UV. So now let's suppose that we make this 2, 2. You guys can see here that the texture now is in a grid that is 2 by 2. It's a very useful thing. And if I increase the speed, it's now going to move on the x-axis corresponding to the speed. So I can increase it, decrease it. You guys know the drill. All right, cool. So now we have that. I'm going to make it 0, 0 for now because we just want like a plain texture, but this is useful for later, for the future, in case you want to create those type of effects. All right, cool. So now what we're going to do here is that we're going to take this texture, and this is very important because we want only the R and the G. Okay, why do we want only the R and the G? Because if you guys see here, R stands for red, G stands for green. So the tiling and offset, it's only red and green because it's true gradients. So it would be the blue channel would be undefined, meaning that if we feed it more than 2 channels, the shader is just going to be confused. So what we can do here is use a channel mask at which we select only the red and the green channel and leave the blue and the alpha channel out of it. So we're going to get this yellowy kind of texture. And what we're going to do here is that we'll multiply this by the texture's alpha. And we want this alpha to be this one and not this one. Why? Because this one has all of the UV modifications that we made here. This one, this bottom one, doesn't. The UV is the default UV. So that's a very important distinction. Let me drag this over so we can have a little bit more space. All right, cool. So now, we remember what I said in the explanation. We're grabbing the screen and we're applying modifications to it. So this means that we're doing things in screen space. So we need to anchor our effect by the screen space. So, sorry, the screen position. My bad. But yeah, which makes it screen space. So we're going to grab the screen position, which is going to return the UV of the screen, if you will. And now we want to multiply those bad boys together as well. So we're going to multiply this guy by this guy. And now our texture is getting even funkier. And finally, what we want to do here, and this is going to be a little bit weird, but trust me, okay? So we're going to do another multiplication, and we're going to make a vector 2, which is going to be called distortion direction, right? And here's the thing. Remember what I said about the UV? So let's go back to this. So let's remind ourselves of what UV is. UV is a gradient in the red and in the green. So let's do that. Let's do a gradient in the red and in the green. So let's take our tool, make a gradient, and let's make it go from white to black, or from black to white, doesn't matter. And now if we make a gradient in here, we have a vertical gradient on the red and a horizontal one on the green. And now if we go back to our full view, you guys are going to notice that we have this funky texture here. This is what the UV essentially is. So what we want to do on the distortion is that sometimes we want, let me make a new layer here. Sometimes we will want to make, let me grab my brush. Was it this brush? Yeah, it was, but smaller. So sometimes we want to distort things only to the right, for instance. So we're not going to really do anything on the up vector, so we can just make it 0. And anything, and the best way to make it 0, to make it nothing, is to multiply it by 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So when we multiply two vectors 2's, what ends up happening here is that the x-axis is always going to be multiplied by the x, and the y is always going to be multiplied by the y. So if we make the x 0, this one is going to automatically be 0 as well. So this way we can have finer control and manipulate our distortion in only one direction. So this is very useful as well as an intensity control. So if we want to control how intense our distortion effect is, we can just tend our multiplication closer and closer to 0. So if I make that value 100, this means that it's going to skew everything 100 pixels to the right if it's plus 100, 100 pixels to the left if it's minus 100, and the same applies for up and down, right? So if we want to manipulate only 100 pixels to the left, then I can make these values right here 0. So this is the math that's going behind it, and this is why we're multiplying it by a vector 2. And the cool thing is, we can kind of sort of prove this. So imagine that what we're doing essentially is that instead of getting our smudge tool here on Photoshop, and instead of doing this, we're not doing this anymore. Now we have the power to do this only on the red channel. Oh, as it turns out, I can't, oh no. Okay, I can't do this, but trust me, this is what we're doing. So let me do something like this, you know, does the trick. So look at that. Now we have influence over only one of the channels. So this is what's going on here. I know lots of explanations, and I apologize. So this is what this multiplication right here is doing. I hope it's clear. It's very hard to explain this sort of thing, but I hope it's clear. But guess what? Now we need to add this back into our screen. So what we're going to do here, remember what I said, we kind of copy an image and then we paste it over after we distort it. So here we make the copy, if you will. Here we distort it, and now we're adding it back into the loop. And now the result from this is going to go into our scene color. So this is going to actually put this into the rendering buffer. All right, very cool. So now that we have that, we can plug this into our emission. And we're going to make a, oops, my computer is a little bit, okay, now it's back. And we can make this albedo just black. So we can just make like a vector 1 here with 0 and just make it black. So we have only the emission going on. All right, cool. I also like to make it metallic and 0 smoothness, 0 occlusion. So this value is here because we want it to be PBR. I think it looks better. You can do this by actually unlit, but I think this looks a lot better. You guys can play around with these values. It does yield some cool results depending on what you're going for, but I personally like that one the best. All right, cool. Now we have this going on, and this is pretty much the shader. So now let's test it out. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to create a new material, and we're going to slap it into a particle system. So I'm just gonna borrow one of these particle systems right here. So let's get the warp vortex. Let's drag it all over. So here we have our distortion effect going on. This one is very subtle. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna go into the renderer and replace it with our newly made material. And it's not working because we don't have any distortion direction. So remember what I said, the distortion direction is multiplying. So if it's 0, it's going to be nothing. So if we put 1, it means that it's going to distort a lot. We don't want that much distortion though. We want something like, let's try 0.3, 0.3. That's a very subtle distortion and it looks kind of cool. We can also make it ridiculous, like, you know, Blanc 46, right? But that looks a little bit weird. And also we can make it 0 and make it start only on the y-axis. And, you know, it still works, but now it only works on the vertical axis. Or we can make it stronger on the sides and very weak on the vertical axis. Anyways, the possibilities are endless. We can make it tile. So we can make this distortion tile along the axis. We can make it move. Let me move it more. All right, so now it's moving. But let's reset this back because there's one last improvement that I made to this shader. I did it to my version and I highly recommend you guys do it too, which is the following. Remember what I said in many tutorials back that you can use custom vertex streams on the model to drive different behaviors. This is a great example of a behavior that can be controlled by a custom vertex streams. I have used custom vertex streams here in the channel before, but let's teach it again. I think this is literally the 3rd tutorial, and in all of the tutorials I talk about this damn thing, but it's so good. So trust me on this one. This is really good. So if you know how to do it, just do it. But in case you don't know how to do it, I'm gonna refresh your memory here. So we're gonna take the UV. All right, I'm not gonna teach like exactly how it's done. You know, like if you really want to know the behind the scenes, you can go for older videos that I teach more. So we're going to take the blue channel and we're going to multiply it. And remember what I said about the distortion direction? If it's 0, everything is 0. The whole distortion effect just stops. So this means that we can use the custom vertex streams by to multiply our vector 2. And now we have control on the particle system about the distortion, which means we can fade our distortion in and out, which is so cool, right? So now, if you guys look in here, oh God, my computer is dying. My computer is literally dying, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so if we go in here, now we can play it, and nothing is happening. And the reason why, it's because we don't have our custom vertex stream set up. So to set it up, we can go in here and we click on custom vertex streams, and we click on the little plus sign, and we click on custom, and we click on custom 1. This is depending on the UV channel that you used. And now we can apply this custom data. Instead of being disabled, we make it a vector, and now we make it 1, and boom, the distortion appears again. As we skew it, we can control the distortion over lifetime, which means that we can make it a curve. And now, since we have a curve, if I open this up, it means that over the lifetime, I can make it distort at the start and then slowly fade away. So let's take a look here. If we play it, it is very strong, and then it slowly quivers away. Well, it should. Is it? I'm not sure if it is. Yes, it is. Definitely it is. All right, cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. If you guys want more tutorials, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, subscribe. I want to do live streams on this thing, so we need more subscribers. And also, don't forget to check out fightandfall.com for more info on the game we're making. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And any questions, put them down below. Goodbye.